I think what I learned in February is that I need to just stop reading romance books because I don't think it's fair to the author that I'm reading romance when I know I don't like it, because then I feel like I'm giving them such poor ratings, but it's just because I don't like the genre. Anyway, I read this one first in February. Funny you should ask. The plot is a mix between present day and past. It's about this journalist that goes to interview like the Jacob Elordi of this world. He's like a very famous guy. And they have some like mysterious three night like hangout. Even though she's just like writing an article about him, she ends up like staying with him for a really long time, and it becomes this huge spectacle. No one really knows like what actually happened, and then 10 years later they haven't talked since that time, and now she's being asked to write another article about him. So then the book alternates between like the present and the past. The format of this book is very like Taylor Jenkins Reid vibes, where there's like articles and like blog entries, and then it goes back and forth between like past and present. So the format is very fun. I think if I read this when I was really enjoying more romance novels, I would have loved it. I just didn't care for it that much, and I'm not gonna lie, I think I didn't finish like this last section. I just like completely lost interest. But it's not fair of me to say that because I just don't like romance anymore. At least not right now. Every month it starts off with a book I don't like, and I feel like it's so negative. Next, I read Train Dreams because this just came out on Netflix, and my boyfriend actually got me this book because he knows I like reading, and I was like, I think I might like the book more than the movie. So then he just got it for me. It's a very small book. If you guys don't know about the movie or the book, it's basically about a man named Robert Granier, and it takes place in the early 1900s, when they're like making the railroad system in the US. So his job is a logger. So basically all he does all day is chop down trees and transport the logs. It's a gruesome job, and it seems exhausting and also very dangerous. He's gone for like, I think weeks at a time, and at home he has a wife and a baby. It's a very short and simple book. It's easy to digest, and the movie is beautiful. The story I found pretty simple. When I read the book, I was like, okay, that's it. I think a lot of things just went over my head. I think if I had read this in class and a professor was like, you know, if we were really dissecting this book, I think I probably would have gotten more out of it, but just kind of reading it on my own, it was like a 3 out of 5 for me, but still good. I think if you're gonna watch the movie, you should read the book first, just to kind of see what the movie came from, because this obviously is the reason why the movie exists. Okay, the next book I read was maybe my favorite, Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Such a good book. The movie's coming out. A lot of the books I read this month were adaptations, not even planned. I just like happened to be reading a lot of adaptations, but this one's coming out in like 2 weeks, I think. This book is about a man named Ryland Grace who wakes up on a spaceship, and his 2 crewmates are dead. He doesn't know where he is, and he doesn't know why he's on it. And it's kind of like, actually, it's kind of similar to this one in the sense that we're like alternating between the present moment and then the past, except in this one, he's like getting his memories back piece by piece. So you're kind of like learning with him, like what is actually happening. There's just like actually so much more to this book though, and I literally can't explain any of it because that would spoil so many things, but this book is so endearing. I feel like Andy Weir is really good at stripping down a character and putting them in like the most isolating scenarios, and then making it feel not lonely at all. Which, I don't know if that made any sense, but I feel like it was the same with The Martian. Like, it's just a man kind of alone in space, and yet the book never feels lonely or scary. Like, it's just something about the attitude of his characters feels very comforting. And this book, it just becomes so comforting to return to. When I was reading the book, every time I opened it, I was just like excited to go back into the world. I personally am really excited for the movie. I think this is the next book I read. Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. For those of you who don't know, this is basically the next Hunger Games prequel, and this one is about Haymitch's games, which is very interesting. The beginning, I felt like it kind of started off really, really similar to Katniss's games, where it was just kind of like we wake up on the day of the reaping and everyone's sad, and he's got like, he runs to the forest with this girl and they've got like their own little routine, and then they're talking about like, well, what happens if you get raped, and then they go to the reaping, and then it just felt very similar. And I was like, you know, I don't hate that, like I love Hunger Games, but I don't know. After he gets reaped, they're in the capital for like, he gets raped probably about here. I swear they're in the capital for like this chunk of time, and then the games are like this is like how long they're in the arena for, and then the rest is like what happens afterwards. I expected there to be a lot more games, but I'm happy with what they had, and I'm really excited to see how they portray all of that in the movie. Reading this reignited my love for Hunger Games, and I literally went through and rewatched all the movies, so this gave me a reason to wake up in the morning. Next, I read this book for class, but I will count it anyway because it's another book that I read. It's called Nervous Conditions. It's about a young girl in Zimbabwe. In this world, no one is really guaranteed an education, but especially if you have a brother, he gets the education in the family. So the book is about a girl who is just like dying to be educated, and she can't because she has an older brother who is going to school, and her family can't afford to send her to school. And then all of a sudden one day her brother dies, so then she gets to go to school, and she moves away to live with her uncle and his wife and daughter, who have been educated and lived in Britain. It's really interesting to see the cultural differences from like her family, who grew up in the same place as her, but now they've gotten an education in a European country, and how all of their mannerisms, their customs, their routines, like everything just changes to adhere to this European lifestyle. And they stop speaking Shona, they only like speak English. It's really interesting. There's a lot of themes of feminism as well. The class that I'm taking that I had to read this for is called Post-Colonial Women Writers. So we're just basically reading a bunch of books about post-colonialism written from a woman's perspective. It's actually so interesting, and I've learned a lot, and it's only been like 2 months. This is a section of the world I don't know anything about, if I'm being completely honest. And so learning about it from this very intimate perspective was very eye-opening. There's a lot of things I didn't know. Next, I read another collection of short stories, and yes, last time I said I don't like short stories, and that remains true, but this one also just became a movie with Paul Mescal in it, and I just had to know. But I think the movie is just the first short story, but I could be wrong. If you want a more in-depth review, I went on Goodreads and I wrote a little blurb for each short story. There's 2 I didn't read, but the rest I left a little review for, so if you're curious, it's on there. I really like this author's style. I think he's got a great eye for things. I feel like I can't say eye because he's not like making something visual. He's got a great mind. I like the way his mind works. I like the things he writes about. There's one story in here that I really, really loved, and I also liked how they all kind of connected in some way. It's really interesting to think about how we kind of like live in time, especially if you live in like a house that's previously been lived in before, how like lives and deaths and so many things have happened in that space, and now you're just like another one on top of it. I feel so brain foggy today. Like, this is probably the worst time to make this video because I feel like I'm not making any sense. But you know what I mean? Like, driving on roads, sometimes I think about how like my ancestors could have driven on this road or like been in this meadow. And it's this book I feel like talks a lot about that, because it takes, all the stories take place over like very different time periods, and so you're seeing how like one artifact from one story in the 1800s kind of makes its way to a family in 2008. Just really interesting to think about. The last book I read was also maybe one of my new favorites. I read The God of the Woods by Liz Moore, and the more that I think about it, the more I really, really like this book. On the surface, it's a mystery. takes place in a summer camp. One of the campers goes missing, but it's like extra bad because she's the daughter of the family that owns the summer camp. There's multiple different perspectives. We've got like also different time periods. We can start in the 1950s. We go all the way to 1975. It covers a lot of ground. This book is obviously like very beefy. Like I think it's even bigger than Sunrise on the Reaping. Like it's just a huge book, but I started it and I swear it just somehow magically ended. Like I finished it so fast. So that's how you know it's a really good book. Anyways, what I was saying is on the surface, it's a mystery, but deep down, I think it's an exploration of class and maybe even race. No. Maybe even sex. I think there's a lot of commentary about sexism in here, but specifically a lot about class. Really solid. I also just read a mystery that was like actually so racist and transphobic and like low-key Republican. And now that I'm like thinking about this book again, I'm like, wow, this one was so good compared to what I just read. So anyway, that's all I read in February. Follow me on Goodreads. Let's keep reading, guys.